welcome to another episode. I am your host, WIZE, and I have a very special guest. He's a fellow podcaster. He's an author. He's a podcast producer. He's a music producer. He has had a distinguished career. I'm excited to have him on. Welcome to the show, Chris Curran. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. So let's just jump right into this. So could you share the story behind your book, The Leap Beyond Your Limits, and how it has influenced your journey in self-development?
Yeah. I wrote my book back in 2009, and it's called Leap Beyond Your Limits. And yeah, it was the culmination of a lot of things. So just to backtrack a little, in the 90s is when I discovered Tony Robbins, and I really just, I got, it hit me really hard, Tony Robbins. And so I started loving personal development. And then by around 2000, let's say 2002, I had literally driven my life into the ground, and I had no money. I had no car. I had no place to live. I wasn't like homeless because my friend let me stay in his basement, but I literally didn't have a job or a car. And that was that's insane. So that's when I kind of woke up and I was like, man, what's going on with me in my life? I'm smarter than this. I felt like I was anyway. And so actually that's when I started meditating. Just sort of it's not really a side note, but it kind of is. Started meditation for real because I wanted to figure out what is this life all about. And then I just, over the next 5, 7, 8 years, I just, got a job, got a car. I just did all the right things, and I got my life back to normal, basically. And so I took just a lot of the things I used to get my life back to normal and to really move forward. I just started writing and had all these ideas, and it ended up being the book. So the book is kind of like some of the stuff I did to get back, and other stuff that just was in my mind. And so it was, so the book has been great. People really like it. Of course, you have to be ready for it, right? You have to be ready for change in your life. Mm-hmm. If you're not ready, then we can give you all the books in the world, and it means nothing. So you
gotta be prepared to use what's in those books, and sometimes that book just might not resonate with you. But there might be parts of it that does. You have to, like you said, you have to be ready to receive it. You got to be ready to receive that message and receive that book. But it's funny because you started as a music producer, and some of the names I've seen in the studios that you worked at are some of the names in the producing business. What was the transition like for you from music producer to podcast producer? What made you want to leave the music and do podcasting?
Yeah, so that answer spans like 30 years. Not really, maybe 25, whatever. So I graduated high school in 1990, and I went to 1 year of college, and I realized that I'm done. I'm done. I can't do school no more. So I did 1 year of college, and then I worked for a year, and then I went to recording school, because I had been in bands. I was a drummer, although I could play some guitar too. I was in bands, and I was recording with a 4-track in my bedroom in the late 80s. It was great. And so I went to recording school, and then I went to New York City and worked in all these big studios, and probably for like 5 years. So I left New York City in the late 90s, and I left because I wanted to sort of produce bands on my own. But of course, I went back to New Jersey where I grew up, and there aren't that many bands. So I did some stuff, but it's way different than working in Manhattan in the major studios. And so then I just started working with my family business, and I kind of stopped producing music for many years. And then I wrote my book, went through all that. And then after that, I was giving seminars, and I was trying to do all this self-help, personal development stuff with my book and seminars. And after like 3 years of doing that, I realized most people you try to talk to about personal development, they don't want to hear it. And even here's a weird thing. Even if someone is in pain, even if their life is terrible and they're in constant pain and they're emotionally a wreck, I can walk up to them and say, hey, let me help you. I have some programs I can take you through to help you. And people don't want it. They're like, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Really? You're fine? So anyway, I really got disillusioned with the whole personal development scene. I was like, man, I'm trying to just help people because human beings, we are, I mean, literally unbelievable, phenomenal beings. We don't even know what we are. That's how much power and knowledge and wisdom and inspiration and everything we have. Regular day-to-day life is like scratching the surface of being a human. And I'm like, there's so much more deeper. And I wanted to explore that, but nobody really wanted to. So after a while, I was like, guess I got to do something else. And I luckily, this was in late 2011, I found podcasting. And I was like, podcasting? What is this? And then I found out what it was. And I was like, oh, it's audio episodes that you can upload and people can listen to on demand. And I was like, well, being an audio engineer, I'm way overqualified for this in the technical aspects of podcasting. And I had just spent 4 or 5 years giving, public speaking. So I'm like, man, I could just start a podcast right now. I can speak and I can technically produce audio. So I literally started my own podcast. And then I opened a physical studio in New Jersey, which I had for 3 years. And I opened that in 2012. And from there, I've just been in podcasting ever since. And it's great.
So you built your own studio where in that studio were you producing other shows or you just rented out the space?
Yeah, so I rented out a space and I had a table with 4 microphones around a table. And I started doing my own shows. I think I started 3 or 4 shows of my own, and I had co-hosts for each one. Yeah. But then I would go to the local chamber of commerce. I started becoming active there, and I started a local business show. And every business person I saw locally, I'm like, hey, I'd love to interview you on my podcast. Come to my studio. And they're like, what's a podcast? So I had to explain what a podcast is.
Yeah.
But I got all these people coming to my office. I'd interview them. And after the interview, I would just tell them, look, by the way, I have a studio right here. If you want to start your own podcast, I'll engineer your podcast right here. You can even bring your guests into my studio. And that's what people started doing. So the host and the guest would come into my studio and I would just sit there and do, engineer all the audio. And it was great for 3 years. I did that. It was really good, but it was so early in the world of in the days of podcasting that it never got really popular like I was hoping, but it's okay.
Hey, it was an experience. It was something you had to experience and learn from and grow from. So
Exactly.
So as a seasoned podcast producer, what are some of the common challenges podcasters face?
Well, I mean, the big one is growing the audience, right? I mean, that applies to everyone across the board. Everyone has opinions about how to do that. Some people's opinions are worth more than others because they actually have like empirical data and things they can point to. But yeah, growing your show that's what everybody wants to know. And there's no answer, by the way. There's literally no answer because even the podcasts that have huge audiences, if you do exactly what they do, it's not necessarily going to work for you. Yeah. So it's a weird position to be in, but that's the number one thing. Other than that, the technical part of production is something that's actually not that hard to overcome because, podcasters don't have to be, for instance, audio engineers like me. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to have a decent mic. You have to know how to speak into the mic. You have to have decent audio or good audio. That's it. Good is good enough. And so the audio quality, you just got to make sure it's good enough. A lot of that has to do with mic technique and not saying 4,000 times every 10 minutes.
Eventually you learn that, yeah.
Yeah, but you can learn all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the other thing is, so the audience is really the big thing, and that comes down to marketing. And marketing is something I've struggled with. I mean, I'm an engineer, so marketing to me is like, I mean, I get it intellectually, but everything I've tried marketing wise is not, it just doesn't, I mean, it works to some extent, but then I don't know what to do. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But, and by the way, this is why any sort of podcast coach will tell an aspiring podcaster, you better like the content. You better like discussing this subject a lot, because you have to love the topic. You have to love your show, and you have to love those conversations. That love is the only thing that's going to keep you going in podcasting. Because if you're just looking at download numbers, you're done. You're going to probably do maybe 2 or 3 episodes and you're literally done. So have to love it.
Oh, I've released, as far as my audio podcasts, I've released 201 episodes.
Nice.
And I started video like a year and a half into my podcasting journey. And so it's been, that's one thing I have to admit, is that I didn't know I would love it so much. I didn't know I would love podcasting so much, and I didn't know I would meet so many amazing people. Like, I've interviewed so many people, different peoples from different walks of life, and they've been wonderful conversations, and I've learned a lot from these conversations. I've hoped to have helped people, and it's for me. I like you said, you have to really love what you're doing. You gotta love what you talk about, the subjects, the topics, and being able to help people learn about or even get more involved into their own self-development and wanting to grow. Which, like for me, I really didn't really get into self-development until 2001, 2002, and I was introduced to it by my first wife, and I think it was her way to prepare me for what was cut to come. But it was an eye-opening experience for me to really see all these amazing, like Tony Robbins and all these other wonderful speakers and writers, and it was like, coming from where I come from in East New York, Brooklyn, this is not something we're taught. This is not something we learn, or we're taught, go to work, go to school, get a good job. That's it. We're not taught about wanting to, why is it important for you to grow as an individual? Why is it important for you to grow spiritually? Just all these different things. And now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, this is why. This is why and it's been a great 3.5 years now. Like, I've loved the fact that I've found something that I really do enjoy, and the impact I've had on people's lives. Like, I released an episode that I recorded probably like a year ago with my friend that I met doing my podcast. This is the second time on my show, and I had this episode, and I forgot I had it, and I just released it recently, and I sent her the link, and I sent her the description of the episode, and I didn't know she was going through some struggles. And when I sent her the episode, and I sent her the description and everything about the episode, she sent me a message like, "Thank you." Like, she's like, "I've been struggling recently with a lot of things, and to see the description that you write about me and all the wonderful things that you say," she says, "I hadn't been feeling that. I hadn't been feeling that way in a while." She said, "Thank you." So that was the first time a guest was inspired by their own episode.
I was going to say, it's like she inspired herself. That's so cool.
So yeah, man, it's those things. But Jan Burry says, you need to be an expert as well, or you lose the authenticity. Yes, that's absolutely right. And
Right.
being authentic and showing your humanity helps. Yeah.
Yeah, authenticity is the key, right? These days, everybody can tell when someone's being authentic and when they're trying to put on a voice and talk like a podcaster. So, but here's the thing. Jan said you need to be an expert as well.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I mean, if you're gonna, like, for me, I teach podcast production, right? I teach.
Yeah.
It's an engineering skill set that I'm teaching. Yes, I have to be an expert, sure. But if someone's just commenting on the news or social issues or politics, you don't have to be an expert, right? To discuss things. Like you can just
Yeah.
ask questions. I mean, look at, the Socratic method. You don't even have to say anything. You just ask questions.
Mhm. And
That's
I'm
more.
learning in the process. But at the same time, I also get to open up about myself and share my story as well. And after all these conversations, you start to realize that yes, we're different. Me and my guests are different in so many different ways. But at the root of it all, we all want the same thing. We all want to be happy. We all want our family to be healthy. We want these basic things, and it's sometimes it's ourselves that keep us away from that. It's like we start putting all this different pressures on ourselves, and me like doing the show has actually kind of like just released me from like it's giving me so much joy to really do this and let just let myself be me. I'm able to come on here and speak to all my guests, and I'm not a professional. I was never in media prior to this. I'm a table games dealer, and I decided to press record and finally get into it, and it just took time. It took a lot of episodes for me to get to where I'm at. But it's been a wonderful journey, man. I love it. I wish everyone could experience what I'm experiencing, but I'm just looking forward to what's to come, man. It's
Yeah.
so many wonderful people still out there that I want to communicate with and hear their story and have them come on and just be able to sit down, listen, and learn something, hopefully. But
Totally.
you've taken another step. Now you're helping the next generation of podcasters. What made you feel like this is because it's needed. It's definitely needed. Because I know when I started, and I started in 2020, I didn't really, I didn't learn, I didn't know a lot of this stuff. I didn't know a lot about quality of mics and what is a dynamic mic and a condenser mic and all these different things. I dove into it and started doing the research, started learning about equipment, learning about video, and because like there's something you said before is, yeah, you can do anyone can start a podcast, but you really do need to invest in a quality mic, a decent mic, because audio is very important. And for me, it was like when I started realizing people were tuning in, I was like, hold on, let me. I don't have a great big budget, but let me see what kind of decent mics I can get out there, and it's to me it was, hey, people are giving me something very precious, which is their time. So in order for me to really do my part, I need my sound quality to sound good. I need to really invest in video, a camera that's really good, and so that's what I did. I invested in myself.
That's it. And now you're going to sound great and look great for the rest of your life. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I started my school, so I started an actual school that teaches podcast production. It's called Podcast Engineering School. And the reason I started that, what's up, Bush 1G? The reason I started that was because when I first got into podcasting, I would find a podcast and press play, and it was like horrendous audio. And I was like, not all the time, not every time, but a lot of shows that I listened to, the audio was terrible. And I'm like, this is not good, because audio is the most important thing. Audio is more important than video. No one realizes this until you realize it. Audio is more important than video. And even George Lucas, the famous movie director, his famous quote, sound is half the picture.
Yeah.
So sound is, people who don't understand sound, they don't even realize that sound is there. Sound quality. They don't know what that means. But give them bad quality and they'll be like, oh, this sounds terrible. So anyway, I saw that the podcast industry in general was a new sort of budding industry, and it's all amateurs, which is great. I love that. I wouldn't change that for the world. But at the same time, I wanted to help teach people how to get good audio. And again, not great, just good, at least good. And so that's why I started my school, which I mostly teach podcast editors and producers, not just like single show hosts. Although some people do, they enroll in my school because they don't know how to produce audio. They just want to learn how to produce audio. And others enroll in my school because they want to learn a tremendous skill and then work from home producing podcasts for others and have a great business and earn a lot of money sitting at home producing podcasts for a lot of people. I mean, and you can live wherever you want, right?
But I have a studio, like I have a home studio. You have programs like here at StreamYard where you could stream it. I'm streaming to 8 different locations right now.
Awesome.
And it's all from my desktop. It's all from my desktop. I'm sitting at my studio out of my desk, and I have a full production. I have intro, outro. If I wanted to play commercials, I can play commercials. You have a whole production studio at home. And so now with that opportunity, with what happened in 2020, so many people were producing podcasts, and like you said, you would turn on the audio and you're like, oh my God. And I'm like, is that how I sound? And so I would start listening to my podcast, like, okay, yeah, I need to improve on I definitely need to improve on my mic. I definitely need to. And so it was just going back and listening to my audio and like, okay. So now when you go to my audio now, you can definitely see the difference in quality in the mic that I had when I first started to where I'm at now.
Yeah, which is great. And I know that mic you have, but I forgot the model number, but I know the mic that you have. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, no, it is. So I was furloughed from work for about 3 months. I was making, the government was giving me extra money, and I decided to invest, and I got me a Rodecaster Pro. I got me a bundle pack. It came with the Rodecaster Pro, 2 Audio-Technica mics, the BP40s, some headphones, some Audio-Technica headphones. And I was like, I'm going to just invest in me. This is something I truly love doing. I'm having a great time doing it. Even my wife, because I was a gamer, I was strictly playing games. Every time I would come home from work, I would spend hours playing games. And I completely abandoned it and fell in love with podcasting. And even my wife was like, what can we do? She says, I see you really do love this because you're over here recording, and she says, what can we do to make, what can we do to help make this something you can pursue? And we started a LLC. Nice. It was just her seeing me fall in love with this, and she's seen the work that I put into learning about audio editing, video editing, learning about sound quality, and all these different things. It was a different side of me that she hadn't seen. And she's like, okay, this is what you're passionate about. This is what you love to do. I'm going to nurture that, and I'm going to push that and encourage that. And I'm blessed that she's allowed me to really dive into it and really just be me, just be able to find out where can I take this to.
That's really good. Really good. I mean, it's so important to encourage each other, not only in a marriage or with kids, but with children, but like just in general, like encourage each other to move forward, go do something, you know? And by the way, I think the biggest outcome when someone, for instance, like you, someone does that, right? Get really into podcasting and really do it. Put your heart into it and do it. The biggest aspect of all this is that right now, you're a completely different person than you were 3 or 4 years ago or whenever before you started. Like, you're not the same person. And here's the thing. Everyone in life has dreams, and everybody wants, you know, more, a new car, a new house, or whatever. And everybody wants to become something in their mind. They're like, oh, I wish I was popular, or I wish I could do this. Well, when you do things like you did, you know, decide you're going to do something and put your heart into it and put some money into it and put a lot of time into it, that's how you change your own life. That's like the only way. So it's a good, I think your example and your experience podcasting is a great, it really displays the potential that human beings have, right? To go do something and become something. And you're not even the same person anymore.
Oh.
I don't know. I just get I get so happy about that.
No, I agree with you. I do, man. It's really like you said, I've really have changed in those 3 years and grown as a person and just seeing the growth in myself and then having people notice it as well. People were like, oh man, it's reflected on the show. It's reflected in the show because now in this past 8 months since I've really started really focusing more on making a structure, building a better structure for the show and being consistent with it has improved my audience, my audience has grown. People have really, whereas my first 2.5 years, I did 8,500 downloads. These last 8-9 months, I've just went over 24,000 downloads.
Nice.
So just in that 9 months or so, in what I've been doing and just the improvement I've been doing on the show, it's been like, wow, like hard work does pay, dedication does pay, being consistent does pay. And these are all things I learned along the way. Because when I would speak to other podcasters, one of the things that, especially ones that have been doing it for more than 2 or 3 episodes, because one thing I read was podcasters usually burn out after the 7 or 8, 9, 10th episode. They're like, they get fatigued and that's it. They're in the podcasting graveyard after that. And I was determined not to. I was by the time I got to 20, I was like, okay, I'm good. I got this. I can continue then. And so it was just a mindset. It was me really focusing on, all right, this is what I need to do, improve. This is what I'm doing, and really started changing the way I because when I first started, it was no structure to anything I was doing, and I started learning and growing. Like, okay, I need a little bit of structure. I need a little bit better scheduling and everything, and so it's helped me grow and develop my show because of me willing to learn more and willing to find the answers to that I didn't know. Like if I didn't know something, I would seek someone who did know it.
Yeah, and you know, another thing about podcasting, like you said, consistency is probably the most important thing in podcasting. But here's the thing. Some people start a podcast like you, and then, you know, over time you sort of ramp up your production and you learn and you keep going. Other people, they start a podcast and they realize after 3 or 4 episodes that they don't want to do that podcast, but they want to do a new one, another one. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you think you
No.
want to, yeah.
It's funny because when I first started my podcast, it wasn't an interview podcast. It was just me just letting out what was in my head, and I was venting because I was out of work, and the the elections was going on, George Floyd situation happened, and it was just the way of me to vent, and I enjoyed doing the podcast, but I didn't enjoy the content because it was the same thing I was getting fed from the news and the media and all this stuff. So I wasn't enjoying the content, and I said, no, I need to switch this up. Let me start interviewing some of my friends that are entrepreneurs or doing something, and that's what I started doing, and that's when I really was like, okay, this is what I like to do. I like to interview and talk to people. I like to really sit there and ask them questions and learn, and I'm like, man, all right, this is why that's when I really truly started realizing, like, this is what I want to do. I want to sit down and interview people and speak to people and just learn and grow and have my audience learn and grow with me. And that's when it really started clicking, and I started getting those guests and slowly but surely started growing. And but it was like how you said it. It was I started one way, but wasn't clicking for me. I was loving the podcast. It's just not the topic and the content.
Yeah, and that's so natural, right? You start out doing something and then you realize, yeah, I mean, I like this aspect, but I don't
Yeah.
like this one. So then you're gonna you just move, you adjust on the fly, and I'm feeling that right now. You know, there's a new protocol. It's called Noster, and it's not a social media platform. It's like a protocol. There's all these different apps. Anyway, it's decentralized like Bitcoin. And I'm getting so into Noster and Bitcoin these days that I really want to start a show, but I don't think I think I want to do like a live stream, but I guess I should podcast it because I just love talking about these two things. They're so like every day I just want to know more. I want to talk to more people. So I'm in the process of figuring out like what do I want to do, and then I'm probably just going to try something and then see how it goes, and that's totally normal.
Yeah.
To switch it up.
But you also do a live stream with your wife. What's that about? What's that show?
Oh yeah, well that's actually just meditation. So
Okay.
we twice a week we have we live stream a meditation. So it's me and my wife sitting in the room, and then all the viewers just sit at home, obviously, and just watch us. And so yeah, we do Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and we do Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And it's great. It's because here's the thing about meditation. First of all, it's like the most misunderstood thing on the planet by people who don't really know what it is, right? If you don't really know, like, just by default, especially Americans, we don't know what meditation is. So not only explaining what meditation really is and the value it has, a lot of people, when they meditate by themselves at home, it's hard to do it by themselves. Because it takes, you have to set aside time every day or whenever to sit down and do it. But when you can meditate with other people, it's a lot easier. So that's why we stream these two streams, because it's easy for all of you. You can tune in and you could put it in your calendar, right? Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain, Sundays 9 a.m. Mountain, and just, whenever you can, sit with us in meditation, and you can actually see us, and it's live. And I do a little reading afterwards, like a little, very short reading on a spiritual topic or a just wisdom topic. It's really great. I mean, look, in my life, meditation is what saved me from rock bottom, and meditation is what everyone needs. Meditation is like eating good food, breathing good air, and meditating. It's just such a natural thing to do that helps so much, because there's so much clutter in our minds, and we just keep ingesting. We keep taking everything in, and we're not letting anything out. It's like, imagine eating 5 meals a day, but you can't go to the bathroom. I mean, what's going to happen? You probably die.
Yeah.
So this is what happens in our minds. Our minds are so cluttered and filled with garbage that we need to let it go. We need to just release all that. And when we release all that stuff, that's when clarity comes, right? That's when you can start to feel your heart. And of course, your heart is the main thing in life, right? It's not the mind. The mind is good, but the mind is just a tool. The heart is our spiritual connection to divinity or whatever that is.
So
it's all about the heart.
Yeah.
But the problem is all of our minds, when they're all chaotic and crazy, it messes up our heart. Like we can't even hear what our heart is saying, you know?
Yeah. I feel you on that. I definitely feel you on that one.
Yeah, meditation is, I mean, seriously, if you want to change your life for real on major fundamental levels, start meditating, but do it properly. Do it simply, do it properly.
What's a good amount of time for someone to really sit down and meditate? Because people think, oh, I got to sit down for half an hour and meditate. What would like for someone who doesn't really have, they feel like, oh, I don't have all this time to sit down. What's a good number for you? Do you think that someone could just sit down and just meditate? And
yeah, so it's funny you mentioned 30 minutes because that's probably what I would suggest. Meditate for 30 minutes. And here's why. It literally takes about 15 minutes for a person just to calm down, just to slow down a little. It takes literally like 15 minutes. So if you try to meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it's not going to go well. You're just going to be flooded with thoughts, which isn't bad. You just ignore your thoughts. But if you're just flooded with thoughts and you're like, oh my God, I'm just having just nonstop thoughts. This doesn't feel that great. That doesn't do you any good. So 30 minutes is pretty good. And trust me, most people can find 30 minutes in their day. You know, we waste way more time than 30 minutes, you know, just scrolling on Twitter or doing, you know, there's a million things we do. We waste more time than any human beings ever in existence. We have time, okay? We can't use that excuse. Oh, I don't have time. No, you do have time. So use your time wisely if you want or not. But 30 minutes is good. So when we do our Thursday night meditation, it's a 29-minute meditation. But Sundays we do 49 minutes, and that's, you know, it's good to work up to about an hour. If you can work up towards an hour, 50 minutes, 55 minutes, that's really good. Like that's really good. But that it does take time to get up to that level because, you know, that's a long time for beginners for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm sure people were like, oh, I can't do 30 minutes. Well, build yourself up to it. Do 10 minutes, then 15 minutes. And yeah, gradually, slowly go up and to the point where you get to the 30 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of people, there are a lot of new podcasts and different apps for meditation, and really they kind of play music or they'll sort of talk you through a meditation. Oh, your feet are feeling really relaxed. Your knees are feeling really relaxed. And look, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. It's all good. But that's not really meditation. Meditation is when you sit down comfortably, close your eyes, and you let go. And you can start with one thought. Usually the thought that we recommend is that you start with the idea that there's a divine lightness in your heart. And then you let go. And if a thought comes in, you just ignore it. You kind of just sit there. It's passive. Meditation is a passive activity. You're not doing anything. You're passive. So when a thought comes, you kind of have the attitude like, whatever. It'll drift away. Another thought will come. Don't give it any energy. Don't push it away. Don't push it away. Don't do anything. Let it drift away. another one will come. And the more thoughts that come and drift away, if you let them drift away, they become exhausted. All the stuff that you took in, all the information and thoughts that you ingested, they come out. So you have to let them out. And then after you let them out, then there's not that many thoughts left. And then you reach this very peaceful, passive state. And then that's when the real spirituality begins, because then you start to feel different things in your heart. You start to have different thoughts. It's a deep rabbit hole. The first thing we have to do, though, is to regulate our mind, bring the amount of thoughts down. And so, yeah.
Man, Chris, this has been great, man. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Now is the time where you get the solo screen, you get to plug away, let everybody know your websites, everything, man.
Solo screen. All right. Well, I mean, I run Podcast Engineering School. That's my school. It's .com. And I'm also on Nostr with my Fractal Chris profile. And really, that's it. I mean, just come say hi. If you need help, let me know. If you have any questions about personal development or podcast production, let me know. And hopefully you can meditate with us. On my Fractal Chris channel on YouTube and stuff, you can meditate with us. So yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna come check. I'm definitely gonna come check you out. I'll probably have to be a Sunday after work because it's right when after work, so I could really use that time to meditate, definitely. But yeah, because Thursdays 7 p.m. Mountain Time is 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's way past my bedtime.
Okay, yeah, 9 Eastern. Yeah, that's not a little bit late. Yeah.
Well, because I'm up by 2 o'clock every morning to be at work by 3:45. So
okay, terrific. Wow.
But I'm not out of work by 11:45, 12 o'clock. So I have the rest of the day ahead of me. But by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah. I mean, so the meditation happens live, but you can watch the replay anytime. So yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I can do that too. Yeah. But thank you so much, Chris. This has been wonderful, man. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Great to meet you and talk with you. Thanks.
Yeah, it was. I received a message today. I was like, oh man, and I usually do have it prepared. I would have had it ready last week, but this past week we celebrated my wife's 50th birthday.
Nice.
And it was a surprise party, so I was just crazy running around, and she had a wonderful time. So I'm a good husband this week.
Very good. We love it. Happy wife, happy life.
Yes, but so 50 was a big number, so I was just wanted to make sure she had a wonderful party.
That's so cool.
But thank you so much, man. Greatly appreciate it. But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show and we'll chat a little bit off the air.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat that came through. Jan, Bush, 1G, thank you. Everybody else who's watching us now on Twitch, Stuck in My Mind podcast, YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. Shout out to everybody at the BS3 network, which we're airing at live right now. It's a Roku. You could download the BS3 network from your Roku TV. Big shout out to my Real Wise fan, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady and happy 50th birthday, baby. I greatly appreciate the support you give me. Big shout out to my guest, Chris Curran, for coming through and sharing his story and really having a great conversation with me. I love it, man. I love it. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.